headmaster, staff, parents and pupils of Warminster. To be invited back to speak today is an enormous privilege, and thank you so much, Headmaster, for that very kind introduction. I'm going to be honest with you all. To be invited back to speak here today, just 6 years after leaving school, is wonderfully surreal. And what a day to be invited back to. I mean, Speech Day always held a secret special place for me over the years, but it was certainly never as show-stopping as today has been. I feel that the bar has been set very high for turning years. When I first joined the school in 2004, the prep and senior schools combined their speech days together. That year, I was 9 years old, and I remember sitting in this hall feeling so tiny in such a huge space. And I watched as the students processed across the stage in front of me, wondering if I would ever get to be as grown up as they were. As the years passed and I moved up through the school, I remember sitting squished between friends on benches at the back of the hall, and we'd stuffed our pockets full of biscuits that we'd snuck in from the marquee that was like gently melting into our blazer pockets. And we'd scribble end-of-year messages to each other on the back of programmes, and not forgetting taking bets on how long the speeches would last, which, knowing that pain, I'll be sticking to my 10 minutes today. And it was in this hall that I was the beaming, proud Eeles sibling, watching as my brother and sister stood on this stage as head boy and head girl respectively 6 years apart. When it was my sister's turn, I had already left the school for 4 years, but my connection to Warminster was as strong as ever. And in my usual sentimental style, I cried all the way through her speech. So you can imagine what an enormous privilege it is for me to be here with you today. Now, most speech day speakers have years of experience and anecdotes and advice that they want to convey to you. Now, I'm afraid that I don't quite have these things yet, but I do have a story of sorts. When you've decided that you're now going to be called an entrepreneur at the age of 24, people expect you to have a story. But the steps that led me to found my equality education startup are not all that clear. Growing up, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do when I left school. Today, my job description changes weekly, and there is absolutely no saying what I could be doing in a month, or 6 months, or a year's time. One of the things that I'm most grateful to Warminster for is that at no point was I ever pushed to make a decisive commitment as to what it would be that I was going to be doing later on in life. I'm forever grateful to them for this. But having said that, there is a straightforward part to my story. And that begins 3 years ago as I embarked on my MSc in Gender and International Relations. This for me was a revelatory, transformational experience, as I learnt about the systematic oppression of and violence against women and girls worldwide, amounting to what I believe to be is the greatest human rights challenge that we face in the world today. As I learnt about these things, I talked. I told as many people as would listen, and many who wouldn't. I was met with enthusiasm, and I was met with resistance, but it quickly became apparent that even those who were on board with what I was saying still lacked the necessary knowledge and understanding to be able to contextualize these issues properly. I realized that if we were to have the concrete, effective, seismic changes necessary for the eradication of gender inequality, then we would have to start with education. So Bold Voices is about inspiring in people a need to have the uncomfortable conversations that we so often shy away from. It is about ensuring that when we have these conversations, they are from a position of knowledge and understanding, rather than ignorance and privilege. It is about understanding that the benefits of equality extend to both men and women alike. It is not about churning out hundreds of gender activists, not that that wouldn't be great. But instead, it is about creating a generation of gender allies. A generation of young people who can take this understanding into their families, friends, workplaces, and communities. For it is only when we infiltrate our gender understandings and solutions into the deepest roots of how our world operates that inequality will truly be eradicated. So it was always clear that my master's study was going to be that key spark that was needed for Bold Voices. But a story that starts age 21 is not all that convincing, and sometimes you do have to dig a little bit deeper. Which brings me back to my time at Warminster. To try and pick out specific experiences and things that happened that directly correlate to what I'm doing today is actually pretty difficult. Which probably seems like the wrong thing to be saying on speech day. But in my eyes, Warminster did so much better than that. It provided me with a foundation from which I could go on to pursue something that excites me, that pushes me out of my comfort zone every day, and that ultimately, hopefully, does some good in the world. At Warminster, there was a trust and a certainty that this foundation meant I could go on to do anything. When I came to leave Warminster, it was with an air of possibility, an excitement about how wide open the world was to me. Alongside this, Warminster provided me with the most immensely powerful support network, one that I feel has only gotten stronger since I left the school. There is a commitment to your future and your potential that is unrivaled. Members of staff like Tom Underwood, who never even taught me when I was at Warminster, have encouraged me and stood alongside me as I developed the idea for Bold Voices. There is a commitment to you as an individual, and this community is committed to seeing that investment through, which only goes to show how strong that is, given that I'm still coming back for more all these years on. And that amazing support network also comes in the form of my wonderful set of friends. Some of those friends I've known for as long as 10 years, and a couple for as long as 16. Their friendship today is a constant reminder of the happiness that we shared growing up together at Warminster. So whether it's teachers, old Felicians, or people that I've met since leaving school, Warminster taught me that to gather a community of people around you, who you can learn to rely on and trust in times of stress and worry, is an unparalleled strength. So, with this support network behind me, Warminster then gave me a reluctance to settle for a pathway that was comfortable, and a need to keep pushing myself out of my comfort zone, something that we heard Mr. Mortimer talk about just now. Some of my favourite memories from school were the endless opportunities to be on stage, to act, and thankfully for all those involved, only limited opportunities to sing, which I'm sure is something that Mr. Mortimer can sympathise with. When I was 13, I played the role of Titania in A Midsummer Night's Dream. This was my first big role, and I was so nervous. I remember walking on stage for my first big entrance, feeling sure that I was the most unconvincing Titania anybody had ever seen. Forget regal, powerful, commanding. Instead, I could feel my top lip visibly shaking. When the performance ended that night, I thought, thank God, we need 2 more performances to get through, and then that's it. I'm never going on stage ever again. But, as you can imagine, as the performances passed by, my confidence grew. And by the finishing night, my top lip was no longer shaking, and I'd actually started to enjoy myself. I was fortunate that this was the first of many amazing characters and productions that I was lucky enough to be involved with at Warminster. And by the time I came to leave school, being on stage was one of my favourite places to be. This was also one of many experiences. I think that might be my microphone, I'm not sure. But this was one of many experiences at Warminster that taught me that it's when we push ourselves out of our comfort zone that we learn to trust a little more in our ability to succeed. Today, this is a feeling that I've learned to lean into, because I've learned that those feelings of fear and discomfort are where some of my greatest accomplishments have come from. I left school before the days of "Why not you" at Warminster, that was so embodied so bravely by our very own Hugh Jackman today. But that phrase didn't come from nowhere. Its ethos has been at the heart of the school for decades, and it is an approach to life that I will forever be grateful for. Now, I could stand here and continue listing all of the amazing tools and experiences of significance that Warminster gave me over the years, but you'll be relieved to know that I have just one left to tell you about today. And that is to find joy and purpose in commitment to others. To tell you about a specific moment from my 10 years here that sort of sums this up would not do it justice. I truly believe it is a feeling that lives at the heart of so many aspects of Warminster life. For me, it was in learning to live alongside 30 others day in, day out as a boarder. It was in community action days, enrichment days. It was in filling up Smarty tubes with 20p's in Miss Frost's classroom for charity. It was in the moment that we won the under-14 county hockey tournament, which might not seem like a big deal, but this was long before the days of Mr. Evans, and trust me, it was a big deal at the time. When we won, our whole team ran out onto the AstroTurf, and we lay looking up at the stars, celebrating each other and our achievement. And that feeling is in the rush of adrenaline that you get being on stage alongside 40 others, all singing their heart out, living the same moment as you are. To find this joy in selflessness and commitment to others will stand you in amazing stead for life after education. Because the world today is changing. Young people are demanding more from their lives. It is no longer enough to simply turn up at work, make money, and go home. Why can't we be having an impact as well? As a consequence, the place of young people is changing. People tell me that I'm young to be doing what I'm doing, but I'm not sure that I'm young enough. Our capacity to affect change in this world is extraordinary, and in many ways as a young person, it has never been easier to be heard. I pity those who do not believe in the immense power of the voices of the young who are demanding change today. It is an underestimation that I believe they will come to regret. The sad and desperate attempts of certain members of the media to undermine and dismiss the Swedish environmental activist and inspiration Greta Thunberg demonstrates how easily those who have traditionally held power are able to dismiss young people and their voices. But it is a dismissal that is futile in the face of such passion, spirit, and determination. So pupils of Warminster, whether you're soon to be leaving school or just starting out, my advice to you, find the problem in the world that inspires in you a need to fight for something larger than yourself, and make it a part of your future. My pathway from leaving school to standing and talking to you here today has been driven by a vision of a world free from the oppression of and violence against women and girls. So the thought I leave you with is, what is your vision? Thank you.